What's going on, guys? Welcome to the new show. It's Real Reds Talks. Me and Sam, Sam alongside me, should I say. We're going to discuss the topics that are currently on your screen. Mainoo, new deal. We've had a couple more details on this, and we're going to talk about the potential extension of his contract, or a new contract, or whatever you want to call it. The 1958 protest, there's plans going forward for that we'll get onto. Victor Lindelöf to leave in the summer, and his next destination could be confirmed. And also, we're going to touch on the summer signings and a couple of things about Rasmus Højlund that's been coming out as well. So if you are just tuning in, or if you just clicked on the show, then please do smash like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll start off with this Mainoo story, Sam. This coming from Chris Wheeler and Nathan Salt, who's reporting that Mainoo's representatives want a pay rise to £180,000 a week, plus bonuses. United are hopeful of convincing him that his long-term future is at the club and reaching a compromise. Is that too much for you? Do you think Ineos will give that? Just your overall thoughts.
No, I think we're moving away from that high wage when you've not proved anything to get it. We saw that with Rashford. He had one good year and then he whacked it up to 325, and now you look where we're at. He's on loan at Villa and probably not going back to the club because performances didn't match the wage that he was on. I'm not saying Mainoo's not a good player. He is a very good player, and I think his potential is there. But I think it's negotiation, in it. His representative has gone in high because he knows he's going to be negotiated with and be knocked down to a wage that he'll probably be happy with anyway, because he's on. What's he on now?
He's not a lot. Yeah. He's still on his first contract in his song.
Yeah. So you go in high, like that's always what you do when you negotiate and stuff. Or if you're on the opposite end, if you're trying to buy something or you're trying to you go low, don't you? Because then they'll go what? They'll come down a bit, you go up a bit. They'll come down a bit, you go up. It's just negotiations. I don't think we'll pay 180k. I don't think we'll go anywhere near that. And if they stick to it and they want that, then United should just try and sort of sell him on, because I think 180k for a 19, 20-year-old who's had one season at the club, and we haven't achieved anything with him, I think is ridiculous. And you could do without those top players at the club. But I don't believe that we'll end up paying that. I think we'll come to some sort of compromise. There'll be a negotiation and we'll get it to a reasonable wage where he's happy, everybody's happy, and we don't have... Because if he goes up to 180, you then got other players going, well, why am I on this when I'm coming in? No, when you're trying to sign players, they're like, well, he's on 180, so I want 200. And then it just starts getting out of control at that point. And that's what we ended up before with Alexis Sanchez on 400, David De Gea on 375. Like, it just got out of control. Casemiro on 350, for example. And we can't shift him now. So that's where you get to. When you go with these massive wages, if you want to then sell these players on, it's damn near impossible. So you've got to draw the line somewhere. And I think fair enough for Kobbie's agent trying to get as much as possible for his client, but I think there will be some sort of negotiation.
I think it's difficult in it because, like, we've seen, for example, the likes of Chelsea being linked with him. And I know, well, I don't know for a fact, but judging from reports that we've seen, Chelsea will pay what he wants.
Oh, yeah.
Because the sell-on, Mainoo's obviously, he's not had the best of seasons. It feels like a little bit lost at the moment. But given the first season he had under Erik ten Hag, there was definitely a super talented, people were calling him generational talent. So I feel like someone like Chelsea would pay those wages. So it's like, how do you balance that as Ineos? What do you do to kind of combat that and say, like, no, it's worth staying here? Because even the future of the club at the minute, Sam, it's not the best, is it?
No, you've got to convince him on the project. The sort of legacy that he will leave at United if things do go right, and you sort of sell it to him and go, look, build a new stadium, we're trying to cut costs so we can invest more in the transfer market, bring better players in, which means we'll win trophies, which is what he wants. Obviously, he's a Manchester lad, he's from Stockport, he's born and raised, so he has an affiliation to the club, which will probably swing our way a little bit in favour, because all he wants to do is play for Man United. And I think that's probably why Rashford stayed as long as he did through the shit that we've been through, because he is a Man United lad at heart. So I think that will help us. I think if it was any other player that we bought as a young player who's not a United fan, you'd probably not have much negotiating power, but you can sort of tug on that emotional side. But yeah, try and sell him the idea, the project that's going forward, and hope he sees that it could potentially get better. Same time, you look at it and you go, you couldn't blame him if he wants to win trophies and he wants to play in the Champions League and all that. Like, you couldn't blame him, because every player wants to do that. Every player wants to play at the top, and you can't blame him for that.
I do want to see that Kobbie return, because I thought in the first season with Eric Ten Hag in that more kind of advanced 8 role, if you want to call it, I really did like some of his performances, even when he went away for England and he became really kind of, important for them as well. It's weird at the minute. Like, under Amorim, does it seem like Amorim doesn't seem to have that kind of close relationship? Do you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't seem to have a connection or seem to want to. I don't know if he's doing that tough love kind of thing, but I don't know. I just feel weird. Like, I feel like he's, because of the nature of the PSR situation, and you've heard about Garnacho, I think he don't like him in the midfield role, because he's spoken about him not having the legs, the recovery pace to get back into position. Then we saw him the first game, won it. I can't remember who it was against, in the advanced 10 role, and he did really well, didn't he? I wish I remember what game it was.
And then he put him in the striker in the next game, though, didn't he?
Yeah, playing him as like a false 9 in the next game, and he kind of failed there. So where is his future in this team?
I think he's further up the field. I think that's where he's at. I think he's a goal threat. I think he's good in sort of tight situations, where people press him and he can, his footwork, and he can wriggle his way out. He's a strong lad. I think 10. I think that's where he'd be put in this system that Amarin's playing. I think that's what it is. I think that's where I'd like to see him. But he does have versatility. He can play that 8 position if needed, like in later on in games and stuff. So he does have a bit of versatility about him. On the Amorim not being close to people, we saw that report the other day, didn't we, where he knows who's going in the summer and he's told them.
Yeah.
And I think when you sort of you build a team in the siege mentality, which is what he did at Sporting, like it became, everybody spoke about how tight it is, a group in it, like the sort of bond that they formed. And I don't think he can form that right now, because he knows a bunch of the squad ain't going to be here next year. Yeah. So there's no point in setting that bond up and that thing. This season is about getting through it, assessing the players, and going, who do I want to keep and who's going? And he's basically told people that he wants to go, that they're going in the summer. So that bond isn't there, because half of that team's gone, right, I need to get my agent on and try and find where I'm going, blah, blah, blah. And he's going to bring players in, and then that's when he's going to tie everything together and then create this group, which is what he did at Sporting. Like Sporting, Sam said it, the first season, it was just about getting people out, bringing people in, trying to figure it out, and then eventually it started coming up. And then you saw the bond when Amorim was leaving, how gutted they all were. They were giving him the bumps and stuff like that. Yeah. So I think it will come, but I think it's going to take time once he gets his group in and once he gets his players in and he's got that settled squad that he wants to work with.
Yeah, I hope he does. I hope he signs it. At the time when it got announced about Garnacho as well, I was a little bit like, maybe he can go, maybe he can't. It's difficult because these players are obviously talented, and you can see straight away if any of them was to leave and go to another club, they would probably be successful, and it would hurt us. But I don't know. I wouldn't like to be any us in that room trying to get that deal done, because if you're not going to do it, other teams will, and agents know that, and that's what they will exploit. So you're kind of relying on, let's just hope he signs it, and let's hope he's happy with the project and he's been convinced, because I don't know how you convince a player to stay at United at the moment. I really don't.
No, in the old days, it was chuck money at him on it. It's like, we'll pay you more than everybody else.
Which
but
didn't work
moved
out.
Away from that. No, we've moved away from that model now. So yeah, it's all about players who want to be here and believe in the vision. Yeah. And if he doesn't, then yeah, it probably is best to move him on.
Yeah. Let us know your thoughts and feelings, guys, on that Kobbie Mainoo situation. Do you think we will get the deal done eventually for him to sign a new contract, or do you expect him to go elsewhere and play for another club like a Chelsea? Be interesting to hear your thoughts on that. Moving on to the next topic, Sam. Stuff coming out from the 1958. Man United supporters are being urged to wear black against Arsenal on Sunday to symbolise how the club is slowly dying due to huge debts, mismanagement, and fan exploitation. Now, if I would have said this to you in the summer, how surprised would you have been, given the positivity at the time?
Maybe a little bit, but the 1958 have always been full sail, haven't they?
Yeah.
That's been their aim, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming in wasn't that. Like, it wasn't full sail, so they're obviously against that. And the whole theme around like the protest groups is getting rid of the Glazers. That's what our channel is about. This is the reason why our colours are green and gold, because we want the Glazers out of this club.
Yeah.
that's it. We were part of those protests when the Super League happened. We were there. We were part of them. I was a part of the ticket protest a few weeks ago. I can't remember who was it with. Is it Everton? Maybe. I can't remember what game it was, but there was some protests over ticket pricing and stuff like that. Like, don't exploit our loyalty as part of that. So, yeah, I think Ineos have made a lot of tough choices that have made their sort of public image a bit more dirty than they wanted it to be, because the Glazers weren't willing to make these decisions. Because if the Glazers made these decisions, it would have been chaos, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Do you imagine? Like, can you imagine if the Glazers were like, we're going to fire off the workforce, we're going to stop this, we're going to stop that? Old Trafford would be torn to pieces. Like, it just wouldn't.
100%.
So they've been sat back and like, well, let's just
made a coward move, basically, haven't they?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. And they're reaping the benefits. They're still getting money. They got 1.4 billion out of him, and he's taking all the battering for it. Like, they're loving it. They fucking love it. So
perfect for them, isn't it?
Yeah, that it's a perfect situation, and you can see why the 1958 are angry, because the fans are paying for years of the Glazers' neglect, and Ineos are having to make the decisions to try and overturn it. So they're getting the flack for it, but in reality, it was the Glazers' lack of indecision and lack of like going forward on things that needed to happen at the club that's caused this mess in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, as a channel as well, you know, whether you've got 200 followers or 10,000 followers or 100,000 followers, we always back the same message. It's always been the same since day one, since we started this, and we don't want the Glazers here. The thing is with it, it's very difficult, even with protests and things like that. Like, if they don't want to sell, ultimately they're not going to, and that's the hard thing. Like, there's a lot of fans that are frustrated. There's millions of fans who absolutely hate the Glazers and want them to go, and the reason why we're in this such a dark, damp situation at the minute is because the debt that they've, you know, basically facilitated through the club and left it hang over £1 billion, which you could pay for a stadium for, the dividends in 200 million that they've paid out, the clowns that they've left in charge, the recruitment that they've just let slide, or like panic buys that they've done, has led to this point now where it's like it's still broken. With Ratcliffe coming in, everyone expected change with you know, football first. And it still doesn't feel like that in a minute, because the football is shit on the pitch, and now it's business decisions that are being made consistently. It's cuts. We're hearing about cuts every single day, and I think it's a point now where it's just weighing on the fan base, isn't it? Heavily.
You've had 10 years of mediocre to, quite frankly, some of the worst football I've ever seen at Manchester United.
Yeah.
So that's one side of it. And then the other side is we've been left behind in every single department in football.
Yeah.
Data, transfers, stadiums, training grounds, everything. Like, just everything we're behind. Like, Leicester spent 80 to 100 million on a brand new state-of-the-art training ground, and they're probably getting relegated this season. Like, it's ridiculous. Transfers, like Brentford are pulling in better players than we are. Brighton have consistently outdone us in the transfer window for the last 5 years. Like, these people who are on a third, maybe an eighth of our budget and operate on way less are outdoing us every single year. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, I think is the expression. Now shit's hitting the fan. We've gone 10 years and we've sort of kept the ship steady, but we've took so many cannonballs to the side of it. Now the ship's going down, and Ineos are now trying to find a way to keep us afloat. They've injected this cash to keep us from going into administration, and now they're trying to find a way to stop the leaks. And the only way to stop the leaks is to just cut everything. And some of the cuts we don't agree with, like me and you have said, people's jobs and stuff like that. Some of the cuts don't make sense, like the charity and things like that. But they're just they're finding anything they could cut to throw overboard to stop the weight, and they're sinking down. That is what's going on right now. And people are rightfully blaming Ineos. But the reason they're having to do this is to put quits from Florida upstairs. That's the reason.
Yeah. Just to offer some context as well, because I've read like a bit out of the full kind of press release from the 1958 and the spokesman Steve Crompton. So just to add on to that as well, obviously I mentioned that supporters are being urged to wear black to symbolise how the club is slowly dying. And the game against Arsenal, it says the club is slowly dying before our eyes, on and off the pitch, and the blame lies squarely at the current ownership model. In many ways, this is the biggest crisis United have faced since Munich air disaster, which inspires our name. The club is facing financial Armageddon. Debt is the road to ruin. So Matt Busby would be turning in his grave at the current plight of one of the world's greatest football institutions, which is being brought to its knees and in many ways becoming a laughingstock. The club is going backwards, and it's likely to get even worse. We urge fans to rise up, unite, and join us at 3 p.m. on Sunday as we march to the ground and protest against the despised Glazers and the club's deliberate assault on fan culture. We've been working hard across both club and non-club boundaries for the betterment of fans, our club, and football for some time. Today, we announced protest details, which will not just be limited to action at the ground. This is more than just a club to us. We are more than just a number on a seat, is what they've said. And you know what? You listen to that Matt Busby line was the one that got me, where I'm like,
yeah,
turning in his grave at the sight of this at the moment. Yeah, look, obviously we'll be supporting it. We'll be backing it. Let us know your thoughts on it, guys, if you are watching. We're going to...
Do you know what's sad as well, just before you move on? Alex Ferguson's probably in his last years now, like he's like 80-something.
Yeah.
He's probably going to die with the club still in this shit state.
The club dying.
Yeah. That's fucking sad, man. Like, it's really sad that he's not going to see the club. Like, he's been retired for how many years? Like, 13, 14 years?
Yeah.
And we haven't won a fucking... Like, we've won an FA Cup, a League Cup, and a Europa League, but we've not won a title or a Champions League in 13 years.
He's actually watched the decline since he's left on there. I saw a load of people on TalkSport. I don't know if you saw it about
blaming him for it.
Blaming Fergie for leaving the team. It's like we won the league, mate. Like I think the average age of the team was 26 or something. Like fucking give over. Nonsense, but that's TalkSport for you, I suppose. Now, obviously, a lot of the cuts that we was talking about, Sam, are financial decisions. A lot of them are going to be made over the summer, and this includes, players leaving, and whether it's at the end of the contract or perhaps selling someone like an Anthony or Marcus Rashford. And one of those players, Victor Lindelöf, is expected to leave in the summer, which obviously he accumulates, I think, around £150,000 a week. So that's quite a significant, kind of wage off the bill. And likely destination, he wants to go back to Portugal and play at Benfica. But we haven't seen him at all this season, have we, Lindelöf?
No, he was on the bench with all the teenagers against Spurs, wasn't he? That was the first time we saw him. And then he came on and played how many minutes against Fulham? Like 20, 30? And that's about it, really. So he's obviously not fancied under Amrim, otherwise he would have been starting. He's out of contract and we've not signed into a new deal, so that says it all, really. He's had some decent moments. The penalty that he scored against Brighton in the semi-final. Semi-final or was it quarter-final?
Semis, I want to say.
Semi-final, yeah.
I think so.
Fantastic penalty. The whole debate we had on this channel when we first started, when Ragnick put him at right back, and we were just like, what the fuck is going on here in the Champions League?
That was a new low, wasn't it? Lindelöf at right back.
And he's had moments where he's like had shades of quality, like with his passing and stuff like that, but he's never sort of stepped up, has he? There was that moment, was it Lindelöf and Shaw? That period.
Yeah, there was that, and I think he had a period with Varane next to him as well, where because we always said it's always when he's next to Maguire, he's shit. Anyone else, he actually put a bit of a job in, to be fair, alongside Varane, I think it was.
Like, he's had moments where he's like, okay, he's all right. And I think as a backup centre-back, he's perfectly serviceable. He's fine, but he's on 150k a week as a backup centre-back, and he's barely played. Like, you can't be doing that, man. Like, you can't be doing that. Your backup centre-back should be a young centre-back who's coming through and learning, and he's on 50 to 70k a week or something like that. Yeah. Or it's an experienced sort of centre back like a Johnny Evans who's near the end of his career and he's teaching and he's like learning this sort of young centre backs, and he plays, say, 10 games a season or something like that. That's what it needs to be. Not a guy who's, when we got him, was in his prime and he wanted to play and he didn't really play and stuff like that. So yeah, I wish him the best. I hope he does well at Benfica. He'll always be welcome at United and stuff. But yeah, it's just a shame he never sort of reached the status of being like, oh yeah, he has to play. Like, he was never that guy.
Just a steady player, innit? It feels like a player who bottom table Premier League kind of caliber could, I mean, he could be a regular for an Everton or someone like that, I feel like, but I think you need better. And look, that started, we was going to speak about the summer at the end of the show, and, Euro, for example, someone who's coming for £50 million, and you look at the talent he's got and you expect his ceiling to be way higher than someone like a Victor Lindelöf, right? So, example.
Mhm.
So, what I want to do is quickly kind of review the summer. Now we've had a bit of time. I mean, it's been over 6 months or longer, nearly a full season now since we signed these players. How would you rate their time so far? So, you got Yoro, Ugarte, De Ligt, Xerxes, and Mazraoui, all 26 and under, pretty much, all bought for relatively decent fees. But in terms of performances on the pitch, where would you quickly rate them?
Yoro, high potential, starting to see some of it now. Obviously, he had the injury, didn't he, right at the beginning?
Yeah. Tricky game against Southampton as well, wasn't there?
Yeah.
He struggled with a little bit.
But I think he had a really good game against Fulham. I thought he looked at, and then before that as well. So I think we're starting to see some of what he's about. De Ligt, again, started shaky. There was a couple of moments where you're like, I don't know. But again, I thought he was arguably one of the man of the match against Fulham. I thought he was excellent. Really, really good. Slide tackles, putting his body on the line, stuff like that. So I think, again, good signing. Mazraoui, we've spoken about how good this guy is. He's ridiculous. Chameleon. Like, just play any position, puts a shift in for the team, bit of aggression and stuff, quality on the ball. Like, and we got it. I still feel like we've robbed Bayern for that. Ridiculous amount. Absolutely. Like 15, 16 million. Ridiculous. Crazy. Ugarte, people wrote him off after one game, which is insane. Oh yeah, he's not any good. And I think he's been excellent for the most part. I think he's really, really been good. Aggressive, exactly what we need in that thing. If we can get him a midfield partner in that 8 position, I think he'll really flourish and you'll see even more like how good he is. Xerxes, the Jordy's out, isn't it? Yeah. I think there's potential there. When you see him on the ball, he's really good at times. Like, he seems so silky smooth. Like, his touch is like undeniable, but he's not really a 9. Is he a 10? Like, I don't know where he fits in this team, but I like watching him play. And I love that the fact that he got booed off the pitch and he's come back with some really good performances and fought back against adversity, which shows he has fight. And he gives a shit. Like, him crying on the pitch after the shootout. He cares, man. He really cares, man. I like that in a player. So, yeah, I think the jury's out on him. I'm still not sure, but I do like him a lot. I really, really do like him. So I think we've done quite well in terms of signings. And then Dorgu is coming in at the ground running in January. Yeah, a really good signing. So I think we've done all right. I think we've done okay.
Well, those players specifically in the summer, that's around £170 million spent. After judging like what you said about each player there, is it a bad summer?
I wouldn't say. I'd say it's a decent summer. I think
decent enough, isn't it? 7 out of 10. You're probably talking.
I think performances have just made it feel worse than it is. Like, because our performances have been so terrible. If you look at our games this season, most of the man of the matches or the players that we picked out where we're like, he was really good, have been the new signings. Ugarte, De Ligt, Mazraoui. Like, they've always been, like, seem to be the ones who stand out, not the players that have been here for ages. Yeah. They seem to be the ones that stand out for the most part.
Yeah, someone like Ugarte, for example, like, the first couple of under 10, people like, what the fuck? Like, there's just something not right there. And we knew
clearly didn't want him as well.
Yeah, prior to him coming in, he was like, he weren't convinced he wanted to keep McTominay. But Ugarte is one of those players. He's an important role. Like, he's a cog in a team. He's not going to win your leagues, but him alongside someone like, I don't know, you put Ugarte alongside a Paul Scholes, for example, like that, having that blend would be perfect. And I think you'll see the most out of him now if you put someone like that alongside him. I think, for example, like Bruno's got a pretty good relationship with him and they're all right in the midfield, but I still think you need Edison. I can't get Rangers now because Rangers just signed a new contract with AC Milan, but someone of that ilk alongside Ugarte, I think would be good. He's a building block in that team to get back to where we need to be. Matthias de Ligt for £38 million. I think Paul Scholes for me is, for some reason, it's just got it in for him, hasn't it? I don't know what it is. Like, don't rate him. Why does he play for all these big clubs? Go and watch his last 4 or 5 performances. He's been one of our best players consistently. And he's only 24 for a centre-back. That is really young. You know, he's way ahead of his time.
He was captain at Ajax when he was like 19, 20. And there's a reason clubs like Bayern, there's a reason clubs like Juve scouted him and signed him, because he's a quality player. And like, you could look at like Bayern, they wanted to get rid of him, didn't they? Like, it wasn't like he wanted to leave. They wanted rid of him because they wanted to sign like other players.
Yeah.
Juve, I'm not sure, he couldn't get the team. Like, there was the whole sort of thing with Chiellini and what was the other guy?
Bonucci.
Bonucci. That was all they wanted to keep them in, didn't they? And they were like hanging on, they're like 39 or something. He just wasn't like getting his time and stuff, and that's why he moved. So there was always reasons behind it. It wasn't like he was shit, so they was like, let's get rid of him.
No,
That wasn't the case.
No, I agree. Zirkzee is the only one on that list for me where I'm like,
yeah,
going forward. But I think at the moment he's having an impact in the team. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's weird because where we are in the league, you're like, well, we're obviously playing bad as a team, but I don't see like specifically from those players. I think Onana's made a shitload of mistakes, and Maguire's had the odd bad game. Dallow's been terrible, terrible this season. Højlund's not scoring goals.
Nope.
You know, the forward line's been
Garnacho's been frustrating.
Inconsistent. So I think it's more towards the other player. Not to say that the new ones aren't culpable for certain things, but I would say, it's more them that are causing issues for me personally at the moment. But I think it's fascinating to hear your thoughts, who's watching right now. What do you think about the summer transfer window? Are you happy with the signings? Who would you let go? Who do you think can really kick on next season as well? Obviously, with players like Euro, the potential he's got, you can only imagine he's going to gradually get better and better and better to a high level.
They're all young as well. Well, like you said, under 25, all of them. Yeah. So they've not even reached their peak years yet. Like Dog is 20. Yeah. So we've not even reached the peak years yet. So it's probably going to be a couple of years before you see the absolute maximum amount of all of these players. And they're all going to peak at slightly different times as well. So I think I hate saying it because United fans, we have been patient, but there's a little patience needed with some of these players. A little patience.
I think the one issue was these players were recruited under Ten Hag. So one, we was quite lucky with Ugarte having played under Amarin before, so he's used to the system. Euro was one who could slide into the left side or right side easily in a back three with the way he is naturally. So we got quite lucky with certain bits, to be fair. But I think they'll be really, really judged next season after they've got a full season under the belt, and obviously a very difficult season at that. And then we'll see what they're really about. So, interesting times. Appreciate you all watching and tuning in. Please do like the video for us, subscribe to the channel, drop us a follow on socials in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We've just done the preview for Real Sociedad, so if you want to check that out, that is available on the channel. We also have a members video on Andre Onana, as well, and that is exclusive for you guys. So if there is any real Red Ultras that are watching, go and check that out and let us know your thoughts. Basically go through a full time capsule since he's joined up until now, all the mistakes that he's made and why we need a new goalkeeper effectively. That is the gist of the video. So enjoy, people, enjoy. Appreciate you tuning in.
Enjoy is the wrong word when it comes to watching Onana's mistakes, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not, but it really opens your eyes, I think, watching it. You're like, wow, is that how many mistakes he's made? So it's crazy. It really, really is. So check it out. Let us know your thoughts. And enjoy the Champions League football, people. Me and Sam will see you guys in the next one. See you in a bit.